All right, so welcome everybody. This is Julio Briones. Those of you that don't know me already, um, you know, I'd like to, begin by talking a little bit about what's going on. If for those of you that are not aware, we also run a YouTube channel and which is now also a podcast called The Morning Meeting. There are links everywhere in the group, and we appreciate all of you guys' support. So today we're going to talk about how to mitigate and manage caregiver callouts. Now, this is a big problem, and the day of this recording is Friday, so I'm sure many of you, as much as we all love the weekends, if you're an agency owner, you don't love them so much sometimes because you know that the weekend is going to be filled with angry clients and a bunch of caregivers calling out or just not showing up to work. So how do we handle this? you know uh, First, let me just pose the question for those of you watching or listening. Just leave a comment below, let us know, is this a big problem in your agency? Do you find that on weekends you experience a lot of call outs and just no shows? Yeah. I know many people do, and throughout my career, I have seen this happen quite a bit. So, how do you mitigate this? Well, there's a couple of scenarios that you really want to avoid it at all costs, because some of the downside of caregiver call out or no show is really, number one, it's a reduction in billable hours. And, it's been shown that caregiver call outs that lead to missed shifts can reduce your annual revenue by as much as 15 to 20%. That's significant, especially if you're a newer agency and you're just struggling to get some traction. This can be very rough. It can really affect your bottom line. So what are the scenarios that are worse than others? Well, number one, if it's the a new client, you the last thing you want is to have your caregiver not show up. you know Especially what makes it even worse is if this new client is the very first client sent by a new referral partner. So basically, if you've worked very hard to start getting referrals from a particular account or facility, and all of a sudden, day one of the case, first case you've ever been sent, your caregiver doesn't show up. So how do you handle this? you know because one of the things that I do talk about a lot, it's mistakes happen. This is a very forgiving business, but mistakes will happen. Caregivers will not show up. Clients will be rude. Clients will be difficult. So how everybody understands this, and dealing with the issue is what's going to make or break you. Nobody cares that things happened and that things didn't go quite as planned. What people care about is how you handle that. So here's a few tips. Number one, whenever you're starting a brand new case, double book it. Make sure you have caregiver A and caregiver B ready to go, um, and staff this case. So let's say you have a case that's beginning on Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock. So you're going to have your primary caregiver, the one you really do believe is a right fit because of skill, availability, and personality. You're going to want to make sure that that caregiver is ready to go. So the next thing, you're going to call her up, or him, and you're going to say, "Hey, caregiver, how's it going? Look, I have this case. Do you want it?" Yes. Great. If anything happens and you can't make it, you got to let me know with enough time. So then you're going to call a backup caregiver. You're going to have a second caregiver who's not going to know necessarily that they are the backup caregiver. You're going to tell them, "Hey, I have a case that potentially will start on Monday at 8 o'clock in the morning or Tuesday at 8, whatever the start time will be. But I don't know yet. We're still waiting to get confirmation. If I need you at the last minute, how soon can you get there? This lets you have another caregiver on standby. So this way, if the first caregiver doesn't show up, better late than never. Okay. Now, another way to mitigate call outs is, it's really going to depend on how you have your policy set up in your office. So if you have a scheduler who is responsible for staffing the client cases, one of the things you're going to want to make sure that they're doing as part of their to-do list is every day at the end of the day, they need to call every single caregiver and make sure that those overnight and evening shifts are going to be staffed. Hey, caregiver, how's it going? Listen, you're set to see Mrs. Jones at 7 p.m. Are we still good? Now, in the beginning, especially if you're an established office, this is going to look like micromanagement and it's going to really upset your caregivers. Okay. Because I know what I'm doing, I know what my schedule is. No one needs to tell me how to do my job, but they'll get used to it. Um, this will all eliminate a few things. Even if you don't want to do it on the phone, like through direct communication, send it out through a text message, send it out through an email, whatever it is you need to do. But you need to get into the habit of every single day doing this. Even if you're not getting them into the habit of doing this every day, at the very least, before any weekend or holiday, you need to make sure you communicate with the caregiver and get a confirmation that they are aware when their shift starts, what where the schedule is, and get confirmed that they're going to be there. Now, this isn't going to make everything perfect because again, life happens and you will still have caregivers calling out. You will still have, people just not show up to work, but you will notice after a couple of weeks that the amount of phone calls you get will diminish significantly. This coupled with another technique that's been very very effective in my experience, and that we've taught this with clients many times in the past, is you have standby caregivers. You pay someone minimum wage to very literally stand by during peak shift starts. So if you see that your caregivers that you have a lot of clients that like to start their shift at 7 in the morning on Saturdays. You have between 7 and 9 in the morning Saturdays, and 8 and 10 in the morning on Sundays. Pay someone to stand by during those times. This will allow you to. What this will allow you to do is to have a backup. You know, um, yeah, to have a backup ready to go. So if you have somebody that calls you at the last minute and says, "Hey, I can't make it," or if you get a call from a client, I'm not able to make it in, at the very least, you're going to have the opportunity to say, "Well, listen, don't worry, somebody will be there a few minutes later, but they will be there." And that's going to reduce the amount of missed shifts. Because quite frankly, the last thing you want is for your coordinator or for you yourself, depending on who's handling on call, to have to tell your client, um, "Oh no, no, we is it all right if we just cancel the shift today?" Because number one, that's going to take revenue out of the office. Okay, and number two, which is most importantly, we rely on people relying on us. This is our business. Remember, you are there to help people, and in order for you to bill, somebody has to show up. Especially in private pay. A lot of times this is a fully voluntary service, and this is not always a necessity. Sometimes people just hire an agency for the peace of mind of having someone present. So when you are missing shifts, you're giving the client the opportunity to realize that maybe they don't need you. And this could lead to reduction in hours or cancellation of shifts altogether. Also, repeatedly missing shifts could get the client upset to the point where they just go and find another agency. So thank you all for joining us, and let us know in the comments, how do you handle, if there's any other tips that you've noticed that works for you. How can you improve your call out mitigation and reduce the amount of missed shifts and ultimately reduction in billable hours? Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time.